Can someone second for me to start? Can I start or must I wait still for other learners to join us? Can
I think
anyone give me an indication?
I think we can start, champion.
Okay, thank you, sir. Good evening, everybody. Tonight is our last informal session for this course that you've been busy with for the last few weeks. Tonight, we're just going to go through the sample paper, or if there's any questions which you'd like to pose, you can pose to me. But the main focus would be to go through the calculation, which is 50 marks, 50 easy marks if you know what you need to do. And then I'm going to touch also on the sample paper. Sample paper is about 80% or 70% of what you can expect in the exam based on the setup. So you need to prepare yourself accordingly for the exam, going through the supplementary paper as a guide. But then, in line with the supplementary, you need to also use your textbook, your assignment, and any other information that will assist you in capturing the information so that you can put it to pen and paper on the day of the exam. Is there any questions before we start? Mr. Tace, any questions?
Nothing from me, champion.
Thank you, sir. Okay, the main question that I would like to stand still on. This is easy marks. If you look at the mark allocation, it's 50. So this is how it's going to be in the exam. The exam, they're going to ask you, they're going to give you the sample numbers, which is from 1 to 10, and they're going to give you data of which was captured. And these data are normally captured in your final assembly. Your inspectors normally capture this information. And then if you have enough information, then in this case, if it's 50 or if it's 80 or if it's 100 or if it's 20 data, you can capture it and you can populate it. But to capture it in this state, you need to convert it to mean or range, depending on what you want to use it for. So they're going to give you all the observation information, they're going to give you all the sample information, and they're going to expect of you, or they're going to ask you to calculate the mean and the range. And to do the mean and the range, see there's 10 answers which you need to put down. If you put all the 10 answers of your mean down, there will be 10 marks. If you put all the answers of your range down, there will be 20 marks. That's easy 20 marks which you can get. And then based on this information, and just if I can stand still here, you need to make 100% sure that when you do the calculation of the information or the data of the observations that they give you onto mean and onto range, you need to make sure your 10 answers are accurate. If you make one or two mistakes here, you're going to be penalized right through the other information which they're going to ask you to do. So take time to, not much time, but take at least time to make sure that your mean answer is correct, your range answer is correct, to get the 10 answers down. And if you get the 10 answers down, you already have 20 marks in your pocket. And then they will ask you to also calculate your range chart as well with the center line, upper control limit, lower control limit, as well as your average chart, center line, upper control limit, lower control limit. They can only ask you to draw either after you've done and have that information available. They can only, due to time constraints, they can only ask you to draw the range chart pre-hand or to draw the average chart. In this case, they've asked you to do the range chart, but also practice the average chart in case they ask you to do that. So here they ask you to draw the range chart based on the information given. Here's the calculation starting now. I hope you have a calculator You must take a calculator with you into the exam, not your phone. Your phone is not going to be allowed. So here the questions start, or here the calculation start. So they say, based on this information, work out the mean for your first sample. And what is the mean for your first sample? It's 58, 52, 67, 61, 64. Can someone just work that out for me on your phone or something that you have in front of you so you can just see how you get to that answer? Can someone just do the calculation? You need to add up those 5 observations and you need to divide it by 5. Can anyone give me an answer?
60.2, champ.
Correct, sir. So that's how you end up doing all 10. Can we skip sample 1 and can we go to sample 3? Can you just do the mean there for me, please? Remember, it's the 5 that you need to add up, and then the total you divide by 5.
What do you mean? It up.
So the 5 observations, you need to add it up and you need to divide it by 5.
Okay.
What's the answer for that?
Say what to sample 3, ne?
Sample 3, correct, yeah.
I'll let you know now. No.
My answer is 81, sir.
Correct, yeah. How do you get to the 5?
I think I don't know. I may be wrong, but I think it's for the 5 columns we receive.
Correct, yeah. Always remember and pay attention to that. Don't go into the exam thinking that you need to add all the totals up and divide it by 5. Sometimes those columns can be 4. Sometimes those columns can be 6 or 7. So please pay attention to the number of observations of columns. And then based on those columns, like in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that 5 will be the dividing factor of your total sum. Can we go to sample 7? Can someone just do the mean there for me? Sample 7. Can you do the mean calculation there for me, please?
84.6.
Correct, sir. Why do you say 84.6, sir?
You want to know how I get there?
Yes, how did you get to the 84.6? Calculator gave that to you? Or your phone?
The phone gave it to me.
Okay. So that 6 is vital, sir. Don't round it off to 84 or don't round it off to 85.
Okay.
Use the exact figure which your calculation gives you. Like the first one is 60.2, you put there 60.2. The second one is 74.6, you leave the 6 there. The other one is 81.0. The other one is 73.4. The other one is 64.5, because ultimately, remember this, your mean is the average. There will be another calculation which they ask you to calculate the average of the averages. And if you have rounded off already, then your answer can be slightly skewed. Can you go to sample 10 and can someone else just do the calculation there, please? Sample 10.
74.6.
Correct, sir. So now for just doing that, working out the mean and putting the correct number there or the correct answer there. Because remember, looking at 71, 75, 76, 77, and 74, you're averaging that out now. And if you average that out, you put it under your mean. So all the answers under your mean is average answers. So by just putting there your average answers, you're getting 10 marks. Easy marks. So now we've covered the mean. Now they ask you why you have to cover the mean, because if they ask you to do average chart, then you have average answers there. So your average chart will be 10 answers ranging from sample 1 to sample 10 if you have to plot it. If they ask you to do a range chart, they will also want you to plot the range answers from 1 to 10. Now, what is the formula for your range? Your formula for your range is your largest observation minus your smallest observation. So once again, look at number 2 or sample 2. What is the highest there? Sample 2, what is the highest observation? We're working now with range, ne?
79, sir.
79. What is the smallest one there?
71.
71. So 79 minus 71 will give you the range of 8. So what does it mean? What does the range mean? It means that there is a range or a variance of between those 5 observations, meaning that 71 is the smallest and 79 is the largest. So the range between that observations is 8. Can we go to observation 6? What is the highest observation there? Number 6.
76, sir.
76. Can you see there's two 76s there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what is the smallest one or the smallest observation of 6? Sample 6?
67.
67.
67, sir. Yeah.
So your highest one is 76 minus your lowest one is 67, and it gives you an answer of?
9.
Can you see how quickly you can work it out? So you need to strategize when it comes to this. So you need to practice. You need to practice this column. Maybe put other figures in there, because in the exam is going to be against time. So when they give you these observations, you must quickly work out the mean and the range. You mustn't think that I'm how to work it out. You need to know how to work it out, because there's other questions that you still need to go and do. You cannot go and spend an hour on this 50 marks here. You need to spend half an hour or so or less to work out this calculation. That's why many students, whenever they start the exam, they start with this calculation first and they put it and they bag it, and then they go to the others, because they now know they already have 50 marks and they just need another 50 marks out of the other questions which they are giving to. Number 9. What is the highest number on sample 9?
70.
Come again? 70?
70.
70. What is
Yeah.
the smallest one?
58.
58. And what is the answer?
The answer is 12.
Akona, can you mute your Akona? Can you mute, please? Akona, can you mute, please? Thank you. So now you have done the range and you have done your mean, meaning that you have 20 marks already. Now to go to the next phase, they will ask you to work out your center line of your range. They will ask you to do your upper control limit, and they're going to ask you to do your lower control limit. So for these, for your range as well as your average, they will give you on your question paper this formula sheet here. So if you look at this formula sheet here, it will give you the formula for your average chart as well as the formula for your range chart. So practice this information to exactly know where it is, because sometimes when you in the exam, people multiply, people plus wrongly, and they get the answer wrong. And then when they have to do the drawing, then the whole answer is wrong. So if you can just go back to, there's the information, observations, mean, range, and now they ask you to do the center line. In the center line for your range chart, you can see here's the figures, which is 15. There's 15, there's 8, there's 11, there's 8, there's 11, there's 9, there's 13, there's 7, there's 12, and there's 6. Say, for instance, there's 15, and maybe you made a mistake to put there 13, which means your answer is going to be 8. And if your answer is going to be, yeah, if this was supposed to be, if this is 15 and you've put 13 there, immediately you're going to be penalized and you get a 0 there. So there you would lose a mark. And then you would come down here and they would ask you for 3 marks to work out the center line. And because you've made a mistake there by putting 13, meaning that your answer here is not going to be 10, it's going to be 8. So there you're going to lose again 3 marks. So please pay attention. When you work out these calculations here, make sure you put the accurate answers down and you bring the accurate answers down here also. Many times when I mark the exam, you would see that all the answers here is correct. But when the person brought the answers down here to do the center line, instead of putting 15, he put 14 or he put 11 or he put some other figure here. And then if you put any other figure there, although it is there, your answer here will be wrong. And then the mark allocation which you're supposed to get will be 0. So that's your center line for your range chart. Then your upper control limit for your range is your D4 times your center line answer. So your center line answer, which is here, your center line answer is, here's your center line answer, which is 10. So this formula asks for D4 times your center line answer, which will be 2.115. And where do you get this 2.115? Or where do you get this D4? You get the D4 in this table. I can't turn it now around. So here's D4. You see there's D4. There's a column for D4. And then here's the answer, 2.115. So then you have to take this answer, 2.114, which is D4. And then you bring it up. And there's 2.115, I mean. So the formula is upper control limit is equal to D4. And the table down here say D4 is 2.55. But bear in mind, you can end up taking the wrong column or the wrong
Wait.
information. You can
Wait,
end
Jim.
up taking the wrong information here. Why do I take 2.55, 2.115 under D4? Can you see that 5 there? That 5 is the observations. If they were at 4 observations, then you would have gone to the 4 column and it would have been 2.282. Can you see the difference? So you need to know, firstly, there's 5 columns of observations, because that 5 columns of observations will be a vital indicator when you go to the table under D4, under A3, and under D4, under D3, and under A2, where that 4 observations or 5 observations would be. So now we know the columns are 5, which means all our answers will be under this 5. There's the column, that answer, as well as that answer there. So once again, back to D4. D4 is times your center line, which is 2.115 times 10, and there's the answer of 10. So once again, if I can emphasize, if this was maybe 8 and you would have got 0 because you've made a mistake by putting 8 there. There you can see the answer is 10. So here you will be penalized if you've put 8 there. And if you've brought that 8 over here, which means this answer would have been wrong. And if you brought that 8 also over there, and it means this answer would also be wrong. So can you see how vital it is to make sure that the answers that you put down here is 100% accurate? Because you'll end up being penalized right through, or you'll end up getting credit for putting the correct figures down here. So your upper control limit is 2.115 times 10, which will give you an answer of your range upper control limit of 21.1. And then you need to work out your range lower control limit, and your lower control limit is D3. And D3, we're going to go and look in column 5 again, what that answer is. Like in this case, it is 0. But let's just confirm in the table if D3 is 0. There's D3. There is column 5. What is the answer there? 0. So D3 column 5 is 0. Just confirming that, meaning that D3 times your center line would be an answer of 0. So just doing the calculation, already given you the formula, you will get 9 marks to do that. So it's already 10 plus 10 plus 9 marks, and this is for your range chart. Now they also give you the formula for your average chart. And there's your formula. Yes, sir?
Yes, sir.
I'm listening.
Please, can you please, I would like to refer to 4.2.1, the center controller.
4.2.1.
No, it's 4.2.1.
Yes, sir.
The formula, what is the value of the bar? How do I get the value of the bar?
Yes, here's the information of the bar.
Oh, okay.
To get this value of this bar of your range, means that you need to subtract the highest observation from the lowest observation to get to your range. The same as with your mean, you need to average out all these 5 observations, divide it by 5 to get your mean answer. That's how you get these answers. And ultimately, these answers need to be populated in here to do the other calculations which is required. So you need to start with your table before you'll be able to work out this other formulas. Are you with me, sir?
Yes, I've substituted in my formula. R, the range is equal to this 15, 8 plus 11 plus what, and then minus 10. So minus what? Minus 10.
I don't see a minus. I see divide.
It's a divide.
Where are you now? I'm lost where you are. Are you now 4.2?
No, I mean 4.2.1. The center
Yes.
line.
Yes.
It's bracket R minus bar bracket.
Yes.
And then I'll substitute the whole thing.
Yes, you need to add it up. You need to add up all those figures and divide it by 10.
Divided by 10.
You divide it by 10.
So where do
Because
I get
where do you get what?
the value of 10, the 10 that I'm dividing with?
Here's the value of 10, sir. Your sample observations is from 1 to 10. So there's the value of 10.
Okay, one second. Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other questions before we move on to the average chart?
Sorry, sir. It's me speaking. According to
Hi, Mary.
Hello, sir. According to 4.2.2, can I explain how I understand it, please? Because I am a
Yes.
little bit confused there, sir.
Yes.
I counted like that when they asked for D4.
Yes.
So what I did, because it shows the size of sample shows 5, but what I
Yes.
did help me in the exam. I don't count the first column because it's written there, but I count like from 2 to 5. It gave me that 2.115. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
Can you explain again? What did you do?
The D4, so I'm a little bit confused
D4.
about 2.2.2.
How to get
4.2.
to the answer of D.4?
Yeah, sir.
Okay, to get to the answer of D.4, remember what I said is there's 5 observations. So that 5 observations mean something. So this is of this column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, column 5, meaning that 5 will be used somewhere. So since there's 5 columns, which is 5 column observations, when here for this answer of D4, for D4, that answer have already been worked out and it's a constant answer. So where am I going to? So you need to go to D4 on your table. Bear in mind, knowing that there's 5 observations. So now you go to D4.
Okay.
See, here's D4. Can you see
Yes, sir.
D4?
Yes,
So
sir.
now there's 5 observations.
Yes.
There's 5 observations. So you need to go and look where 5 is written. In this case, there's 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes.
But there should be a 1 also, but this table is designed not to have the 1. There should be another figure there. So now you know there's 5 columns, and because there's 5 columns, you go to the sample size of 5, and that sample size, you move across to D4.
4.
See, there's D4.
Yes, sir.
So D4, You need to find the answer in column D4. But before you
Okay.
get to the answer of D4, you need to also get the observations of 5. And there's the
Okay.
5, and you bring it across to
Okay.
D4, and that answer of 2.115, you need to put in your calculation to be able to work out the answer. Meaning,
Okay.
meaning the same thing is going to be if you work out A2, you will once again still have to go to 5 and populate this answer to get that will be A2.
Okay.
So
Now
A2 will be 0.577 based on your sample observation size there of 5.
okay.
If there was 4 columns, you would have
Yes,
gone to
sir.
4. If there was
Okay.
4 columns, you would have gone to 4. If there was 7 columns, you would have gone to 7. To be able to answer A2, and to be able to answer D4, and to be able to answer D3. Are you with me?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
So this is important. This is important there. That's why I said to work out this calculation, if they give you this here, you need to know, because the one gentleman asked, where do you get the 10? So there's the 10.
10.
Yeah, there's the 10. Yeah. Where do you get the 5 observations? It's column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, column 5. So now I know when I'm going to look for D4, I have to go and look in the line of, for D4, I need to go and look for 5
Yeah.
on your table,
Yes, sir.
which is there.
Okay.
And you can test it. You can test the answer. If you can test the answer. This answer there for D4 is 2.115. You can go down there and you can check, is it 2.115? There's the answer, it is 2.115. If you go to A2, you can go and test it on the table. You can see it's 0.577, meaning that your answer should be correct.
Okay.
Is there any questions? Can we go to your average chart information, how to populate that information?
I have one.
So now let's 4.3. Can we go to 4.3? Does everyone understand how to work out 4.2? Can we go to 4.3? 4.3 is your average chart, or your average of your double bar chart. Where does this information comes from? That information
Comes from the mean.
comes from the mean.
Yeah.
Can you see where's the 62 or 60.2? Can you see where's the 74.6? There's that information. So once again, if you have made a mistake here, you would have made the mistake also. Yeah. So you need to make sure that whatever you populate there is 100% accurate. And then once again, sir, where's the 10 coming from? There's the 10. Meaning that you need to take all these averages, and that's why it's called double average of averages. You need to add it up and divide it by 10 to get an answer of 72. And to get that 72 with a correct answer, you get 3 marks. Then your upper control limit for your double bar plus your A2. So there your double bar answer. For your double bar answer, it's 72. Can you see there 72? You cannot do your control chart, upper and lower control, if you don't have that 72. So that's why you first need to work that out. Then you need to get the answer of A2. So where's A2? A2 is 0.57. Where's 0.577? There's the 5. There's your A column. there's 0.577. So you don't work out this. This is an answer already given to you. You just need to come to the correct column to retrieve this information and put it in your formula to be able to answer or to get to the correct answer. So there is 0.577 times the 10. And where's that 10 coming from? Is this R minus bar? This is the center line. There's the 10. So there you put the 10 in and you get the answer of 66.23 to get an answer, to get 3 marks for that answer. No, sorry. To get that is you have to get your upper control limit would be 77.77 for 3 marks. Then you would go to your double bar once again, which will be the same answer. Can you see the difference? It's the same formula. The only difference is the upper control limit have a plus and the lower control limit have a minus. So the same information that you put in here, the same information you put in here, only difference is the minus. So your upper control limit will be 77.7 and your lower control limit, because it's a minus, will slightly be lower than your upper control limit, which means that if you have to draw a chart, your upper control limit will be 77.7. Your lower control limit will be 66.23. And your mean or your double bar will be the center line between these two figures. In this case would be 72, will be 72. So that'll be your center line between these two figures. And then they will ask you to indicate or to plot these numbers onto a graph, but in this case, they're not going to give you a graph piece of paper. You need to draw it by hand. So you need to practice it by hand also to be able to quickly draw it in the exam. So you need to scale it slightly, but it's not going to be an accurate scale. Plot it, scale it, and label it. So if they ask you to do average chart, please put on top average chart. And then you put the figures, you label it correctly to get that answer. You get a mark for just writing the average chart. You get a mark for just writing the range chart. If you just leave it like that, you're not going to get a mark. You're going to get a mark for plotting the figures, but you won't get a simple mark of just labeling what graph you were busy drawing. Any questions so far?
How do I plot the graph, sir?
Can you see there, sir? So those average figures and those range figures, this is how you plot it. So the bottom would be your range, how you plot it, and on top would be your average. They won't ask you to plot both. They will just ask you to plot the range due to time constraints, or they're going to ask you to plot the average, one or the two, which means you need to practice it freehand. And when you get to that point of in the exam, you need to also be able, because I've requested numerous times for graph papers to be issued, and many times they don't issue you. If they do issue you the graph paper, practice it on the graph paper as well as on a freehand piece of paper in case they don't give you the graph paper. The last exam, they've given the graph paper, but 2 previous exams, they didn't give the graph paper. So irrespective of what you're going to get in the exam, please practice both ways. And also please practice your average chart as well as your range chart. Any questions? Then that will be 20, 50 marks. I just want to touch base on this 10 marks also here. This is a histogram. This is called a histogram, where it is labeled the number of items and the number of classes. So here's the classes and here's the numbers. So they would ask you to draw a histogram and they will give you this information. And just taking this information and plotting a freehand graph, they will give you 10 marks. Please practice this with the 3, 6, 12, 21, 6, and 18. Put then other figures in there, practice it with at least 2 or 3 other figures in there. In the event they ask you this specific question, and I think 99% they're going to ask you to draw a histogram so that you can also easily get this 10 marks in the exam. Any questions? Any questions? Mr. Thijs, are you still with us, sir?
I'm around. I'm following.
Mary, are you still with us? Usumzi,
Yes,
are you with us? Are you with us, sir?
Yes, I'm around, sir.
Okay. Can I just go to the top of the exam paper? And I'm going to quickly go through the exam paper. First, what is this paper all about? It's an exam closed book paper, quality 1. It will be from 9 till 12, depending on where you are, if you're in East London or if you're in Port Elizabeth. And then what is the guide or general instructions for this? Firstly, you need to have a calculator. Take a calculator with you. When you practice on your calculator, take the calculator which you've practiced on to the exam. Don't go into the exam with a calculator that you're going to use for the first time. Go to with a calculator that you've practiced with. You're not going to be allowed to use your phone to do calculations. Unless otherwise stipulated, no books, notes, or other papers will be in possession of any of the learner during the assessment. No communication are allowed. No programmable calculator are permitted, which means you need to have a standard calculator. Cell phones must be switched off. Your name ID need to be populated on the paper. Keep your ID close, and all question papers and answers must be handed in before you leave the exam. Specific instructions, there will be 3 sections, section A, B, and C. Section A, answer all the questions, and all the questions meaning all general questions, meaning that you would have gone through all your chapters to be able to answer section A. Section A is compulsory. Section B, there will be 4 questions. 3 questions need to be answered. Remember, the exam comprises of 200 marks, which means your 3 questions out of section B is you need to choose 3 out of the 4. Please don't make the mistake where some people write all 4 questions in the exam and then they expect you to choose which one. The rule is simple. The first 3 questions will be answered, will be marked. The 4th one will be scrapped, will not be marked. Meaning that if you think that all 4 is going to be marked and the highest mark is going to be taken, that's not the rule. The rule is you mark the first 3 and you disallow the fourth one. Section C, 2 questions, you need to answer 1. Please don't write all 2 questions, because the first one will be marked and not the second one, or the highest one will be taken. So that's the specific instructions for your exam. And then section A is about multiple choice questions that you need to read through your textbook. You need to study your textbook to be able to answer those questions. With that, I can't help you with. You need to go through your textbook. Question 2, columns. You also need to choose the correct one. Once again, you need to go through your textbook to be answered that question. Then question 3, true or false, textbook. You need to go through your textbook to be able to answer true or false. Then, very important, section B. Your strategy should be, for section B, if there's 4 questions, like in this case, quickly go through all 4 questions and quickly distinguish which one you're going to get the highest mark. And once you've browsed through all 4, then choose the 3 that you're going to attempt. Don't attempt all 4. Your strategy to the exam is first read the question and then look at the mark allocation. So if you look at the mark allocation 15, I always refer to all the students that don't write answers in paragraphs, write answers in bullet points. Because bullet points is easy to mark and bullet points are easy also to say. You ask for 15 answers. Yeah, you ask for 15 answers. Or yes, 15 responses from me. But if you put it in a paragraph and think in a paragraph is 5 answers or 3 answers, sometimes there's only 1 or 2 answers, where people end up writing a half a page and there's just 3 and they think it's 10. But if you put it in bullet points, you directly telling the marker 15 points, 15 answers. Looking at 1.5, here they ask that you must explain each of these headings: price, cost, productivity, profitability, and sustainability. Since there's 5, the strategy would be to divide the 5 into the 15. And then you would know under each of them, I must at least put 3 or more. Don't put a paragraph there thinking there's 3 and there's end up only being 1 mark. So always look at your mark allocation and ask yourself how many headings are they asking for? And then you divide those headings into your maximum mark required to be able to break down all your answers under each heading. Then they ask for benchmarking. So benchmarking, by now you should know what the definition of benchmarking is. Describe the 2 parties to each benchmarking relationship. You need to explain that, what it is. List and describe the 6 benchmarking steps, meaning that you need to list the heading, and under that heading, you need to give an explanation. So in this case, there will be 6 headings. So I would take that 6 and I would divide it into 15, meaning that under each heading, I would more or less have to put 2 answers to get the maximum mark allocation of 15. So when you study and they ask you, like in this case, to list and describe the 6, you take that 6 which they ask, you divide it into the maximum total to break down under which each heading or what each heading should have an answer. Then looking at 3.5, and just to go one step back, 1.2.3, they say list and describe. Yeah? The other way around, they would also ask you to name and describe, or they can ask you discuss the 6 benchmarking steps. When they ask you to discuss the 6 benchmarking steps, they actually mean to name the 6 benchmarking steps and explain it or describe it. So always read your question carefully to be able to answer your question. If they only would have asked to list the 6 benchmarking steps, then your mark allocation would have been 6 marks. So don't, if they ask you just to list it or name it, now you also end up describing it and wasting time because you're not going to get that other 8 marks. Just list it or just name it because they ask you just to list it and name it and only give you 6 on a mark allocation of 6. So be careful of, there's some people that know certain answers, and because they know certain answers, they write that full answer, but they only get 6 marks or they only get 5 marks, thinking that they're going to get 15 or 20 marks. 1.3, describe the conflict resolution components. So there also, look at the mark allocation. There is name and explain. So there you name it and there you explain it. There you name it and there you explain it to get the maximum mark allocation of 10. And then define Taguchi's concept of robustness. That's 2, mark allocation of 2. Don't end up writing a half a page or don't end up writing a full page just for 2 marks because you want to illustrate that you know what the definition is. You're wasting time. Question 2.1, strategic planning is important for effective supply chain management. Illustrate the supply chain planning strategy. Meaning, for 12 marks, there's the answers. Then 2.2, here they ask, list the 7 steps in the ISO registration process. So for each step, they will give you 2 marks, which is the maximum mark allocation of 14. Then they ask you 3.21, define corrective and preventative action. This corrective action and preventative action, and provide examples in your organization. This is a given. There will always be a question where you need to answer corrective action, where you have to answer preventative action for 10 marks. So you can bet on it. There will be a question in the exam where you have to define corrective action and give an example, where you have to define preventative action and give an example in this case. There will always be a question like this, 10 marks. Then identify the 8 prevention cost. Here's the 8 prevention cost. In this case, they would ask you the 8 prevention cost the other way around, which they always also ask if they don't ask it like this. They will ask you to name the 4 quality costs. They will ask you to name the 4 quality costs. And what is the 4 quality costs? It's appraisal cost, it's prevention cost, it's internal cost, and it's external cost. Then you need to take those 4 costs and you divide it. And under each of them, you need to put an explanation and examples. I think that will end up to 20 marks, like in your assignment, 20 marks or 25 marks. So if they don't ask you to identify the 8 prevention costs, or they ask you to identify the appraisal cost, they're going to ask you to name and explain all 4 costs to get a maximum mark allocation of 20 or 25. You can bet on that. Then measure phase in the DMAIC process involves 2 major steps. Discuss these steps. So here you need to name the steps and you need to give an explanation of the steps. 6 marks. Then question 3, identify and discuss the 6 types of teams.
Okay.
Mr. Buzumzi, can you please mute your line, please? Mr. Buzumzi, can you please mute your line?
Okay, no, it's already off. Sorry.
Can you? Thank you. So they will ask you to identify and discuss the 6 types of teams. Remember, identify and discuss, or name and explain can be the other way around. So you need to name it and you just give a quick explanation for 6 marks. 3.12, from your organization, provide examples of each of these 6 types of teams, meaning whatever example you put there, you need to get an answer because I have no idea what's happening in your company. So that's a given. If they ask you, whenever they ask you to give an example, the answer should be a given because no one knows exactly what happened in your. If you say this is happening in your organization, we must believe you and give you those marks. Then define the following. What is the check sheet? What is a check sheet? What is a histogram? What is a control plan? What is a control chart? So those basic control, basic quality tools, you need to know those 5 basic, those 7 basic quality tools. So you must name and explain it, or you need to define each of them to be able to get an answer. And then you get to 3.3, which is going to ask you to draw a histogram. And there's how the histogram looks like. Please practice this histogram because this 10 marks is also a given, which they're going to ask you. Then this 3.4. 3.4 is also a question that they like to ask. So they will ask you to draw the PDCA cycle, name it, and explain it. Like in this case, the naming it would be plan, do, check, act. And then you need to also say what plan is, what do is, what check is, and what what act is. 10 marks. Easy 10 marks. Then discuss Stephen Convoy's 8 habits. So what does discuss? In this case, it's slightly confusing here because they talk about 8 and they talk about 8 marks. It should actually be 16 marks where they say discuss the 8 of Stephen's habits. In this case, you just need to name it, be proactive, begin with the end in mind, because they're only going to give you 8 marks based on this allocation here. So it's not a name and explain, although they say discuss. Then, once again, question 4, which is your calculation for your range and your average chart. And then section C, cost and effect. Here they ask you discuss the 5 steps involving in creating a cause and effect or your fishbone diagram for 10 marks. You need to put these 5 answers down, which they give you 2 marks. And then they also ask you to work out a example which is in your organization. To just draw this fishbone diagram, they're going to give you marks. And under each of them, you at least need to put 1 or 2 examples to get the maximum mark allocation of 15. So first practice how to draw this and how to name it to get marks for drawing it. And then under each of them, you put any example which happened in your company. Any problem that you were busy with or which you were aware of, which you can put information underneath. Then question 2, function perspectives of quality. Here they ask with reference to your organization or any organization, discuss the 7 functional perspectives on quality. 25 marks. meaning that you need to name and explain the 7. So since they mentioned the figure 7, you take that 7, you divide it into 25, and it means you must at least under each of them have 3 to 4 answers to get the maximum mark allocation. You need to put a heading of 7, and under each heading, you need to put at least 3 to 4 answers to get the maximum mark allocation. And that's the last question for section C. Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Mary, any questions? Pumalela, any questions? Sipelelo, any questions? Maya, any questions?
None, Andrew.
I'm still good, sir.
Please, once again, please practice that calculation. It's 50 easy marks. 50 easy marks. I've also given you another example of how I've worked it out. Please go through that example where it shows you how I got to the answers. Please practice it. And if there's anything that you don't understand, you can contact me and I will explain it if I am at home to answer you that question. Any other questions? Can we conclude? Thank you, sir. Can we conclude? Thank you, sir. All the best for the exam. Thank you. All the best for the exam. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So if we
Thank
have
you.
some difficulties, we can WhatsApp and then maybe if that question, then we can explain.
Yes, madam. I'll respond.
Okay, thank you.
But not during the
Okay.
day. I'm also working. I'll respond after 5.
Okay, no problem. Thank you, sir.
Okay.